Hey everybody, ZoinkMeister Patrick here, back with Adam for another one of these podcast, mini-cast videos.
What's up?
And today's topic is going to be, do Let's Plays count as being an informed enough decision to decide like how you feel about a game? Like, could you hold a strong discussion having just seen a Let's Play? Is sort of the idea. And we'll see where we go with it. I felt like it was relevant to this channel because it's a Let's Play channel. So, how do we feel about that?
So when I watch a Let's Play, I think it's kind of important to who's playing said game.
Right.
See, my number one, it's kind of hard to say commentator. It's Donkey, video game Donkey. He's my favorite, and then a close number two is Critical or Penguin Zero. And they both do pretty good insight on games, but they kind of focus on a comedy aspect to it.
Right.
And it's almost like when it's a comedy aspect, you kind of see it how it is and get a very general, like you're only seeing the cut pieces they kind of want you to see.
Right. I think even like with Donkey's videos, I think they're even like kind of skewed towards, well, sometimes, right? They're skewed towards what he wants you to see. Like, I'm sure you could take a good game and make it look bad if you wanted to.
Yeah, like Donkey's video on Shadow of the Colossus, I agree with 100%. Like 100%.
Right.
That game, it looks beautiful. The orchestra, the way it swells is gorgeous, but the controls are just so bad. And like you can tell that he's not even trying to be funny about it. He's just
Right.
giving honest descriptions, and it's just
Right.
it's really that bad where it's almost like when fighting the controls is such a bad hassle, but as soon as you get past that and you hit that one key moment, you're like, wow. And you could just see that whole, I'm on a horse running from a giant monster and I'm about to turn around and hold onto its mane, climb up its head and stab it in the face. Like it's one of those like great, everything's beautiful, the camera's finally working perfect, but the controls are just so awful that it's almost, you wouldn't really see how bad it is based off of someone's
Right. Like the other Shadow of the Colossus, The Last Guardian, I knew it had terrible controls, but it wasn't until I went over your place and played it on your delayed TV that I was like, oh, this game's literally impossible.
Yeah, no, that was really bad because the old TV we were playing on was like, it was like just under, I want to say it was like between 55 or 60 inches, and it was 4K, so the refresh rate wasn't too high, so it kind of had a slight delay to it, and the controls were already like delayed because of just, that's how the developers' games are, and
Right.
for some reason, and it was really bad. Like it was to the point where you can really see every single kink. It's like when you were watching the game happen, it looked really nice, but when you were playing it,
fine.
when you were playing it yourself, it was really not so good.
Right. So to me, Let's Plays have always been something that it's been my main access to video games. When I was younger, I kind of did a lot of like demos and watching other people play, and my entire life I've always enjoyed watching people play games. Like my first experience with Assassin's Creed, I remember Assassin's Creed 2 was a family friends got the game and they were playing it, and I was like, oh, I knew like everything to do, and then their uncle was like, do you own this game? And I was like, no. Like, I just seen a Let's Play of it. And so I felt like I knew the game, like, even better than the people holding the controller at the moment. And so to me, that's always been my insight into gaming, has been, I watch Let's Play channels more like, I used to watch the Rad Brad, but I prefer, like, Tetra Ninja now. And those are just, like, full-length Let's Plays, beginning to end, showing everything. It's not a completionist, not even it's just a finishist, I guess, if anything. And so they just sort of, like, they don't give their opinion at all, except, like, they usually say, like, I like this, or they stop playing it, right? Because they're trying to stay positive so they can get all those nice deals and get the games early and all that. So, to me, I've made most of my informed decisions about video games, about whether or not I want to get it, whether or not I want to play it and buy it and spend my money on it, based on Let's Plays. The way I usually approach Let's Plays is, like, I'll start watching it, and if the game doesn't interest me at all, I'll stop watching it, right? Because it's like, oh, this game looks boring, so I won't watch it. Then after that, it's like, okay, this game's really fun, but I don't want to fork up $60 for it. Like, it's not that fun. but it seems like a really cool game, so I'll probably watch the whole thing. Or as soon as I decide that I want to play the game, I usually stop watching the Let's Play if it's those kinds of Let's Plays, where it's like not really terribly funny. It's just a straight up like what the game is. And so it's usually as soon as I decide I want to play it, it's like, no, like I'm just going to play it. But I know most of the games I could probably talk about I don't own. Like I own so few games for the PlayStation, it feels like. This last year I bought 2 games in 2017. But I could tell you about most other games in 2017. I can tell you all about Odyssey and Breath of the Wild and Resident Evil Biohazard and I don't know what else came out last year. Cuphead. But I didn't buy any of those games. Neo's another one, right? I know all about all these games, and I bought 2. I bought Gravity Rush 2 and Nier Automata, which have both been amazing, spectacular experiences. Gravity Rush 2 is now arguably my favorite game of all time. But yeah, and it's just like, so I believe Let's Plays can give you a ton of insight into a game. And you can make a strong argument for whether you'd like the game or you wouldn't like the game, or whether it's a good game. Good being like well made, perhaps. Just off of what you can see other people do. You don't get a feel for the controls, right? Like Last Guardian, I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. This is impressive. I've watched a full Let's Play before I played it at your house, and then it was I played it at your house, and then I was like, oh, this game's quite a bit worse than I would have normally said it was.
Oh yeah, and it's going back to something like that where it's like controls. You're not going to feel that from a Let's Play, but I mean going back to the Assassin's Creed point where it's like maybe you can memorize the game better and like notice the little details because you don't have to focus on something like controls, or like you don't have to worry about beating that enemy because inevitably the person in front of you is going to beat them, so you don't have to worry about the skill aspect, and you could notice all the little tiny details.
You spend all your time watching for patterns and stuff. Like I remember you played Crash Bandicoot, you played one of the bosses where he jumped in this, it looked to me like a super obvious pattern, but I remember going over your house and you're like, this guy's impossible. I was like, Adam, he goes in a square. Like
yeah, it's one of those things where it's like being able to see something and not have to worry about it just to dissect it, and then actually having to like put in input can put in a totally different swing. So it's like some games like Gravity Rush 2, I feel is like all the fun is in the gameplay, whereas like I feel like watching that game doesn't give it enough, like it doesn't build the pros of the game. Like
that'd be fair. I mean, I have so much fun just like flying around in a circle, right, in that game. Yeah, it's just that feeling of like flight and stuff. Although one game that I felt like it didn't change. I watched it as a Let's Play years before I bought it. I didn't buy it. You bought it for me for my birthday. Thank you. Was The Order 1886 was another game I got last year. It didn't come out last year, but I did get it last year. Or it was the year before. I don't know. It doesn't matter. The point is, I 100% completed that game. I love that game. But I watched 2 Let's Plays of it before I owned it, right? Because I wasn't willing to pay $60 for it, because it wasn't a $60 game. I was willing to pay $30 for it. It's definitely a $30 game, for sure. But I feel like I don't know how much more I got out of playing it myself. Like, I don't think anything new came out of me playing it. It's sort of like I figured it out. Like, that was the game. The controls are really tight. The game controls, like, surprisingly super well. But I don't know if I needed to know that necessarily.
Yeah, that whole game is like not having enough game, the ride. It's just it's not. It looks beautiful. It sounds beautiful.
Yeah, both. It's amazing. The like gunshots are incredible. The audio for it, they did an amazing job.
Yeah, the concept sounds great. It's just there wasn't enough there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not in the sense of like No Man's Sky is not enough there. It's like its own like the whole beautiful masterpiece part is there. It's just there's not enough of it.
Right. Well, like, so then 2 more examples. If we look at Nintendo recently, they had, like, Breath of the Wild is a good example of something where you get a good idea for the game, but I feel like you wouldn't get the joy out of watching a Let's Play, whereas Odyssey, on the other hand, I feel like you kind of get probably a good chunk of the experience watching a strong Let's Play, because I feel like a lot of that game is in the Mario, like, a theme park, right?
So, honestly, I disagree with that, just because Odyssey is one of those games. It is like the Zelda Breath of the Wild equivalent to Mario, where like there's an exploration aspect. It's one of those things where every single person I talked to had a different experience of the exact same level somehow.
Right. Well, so
I mean,
I would argue that like if you think you'd enjoy it, I think there's much more to get out of it in playing it yourself. But As far as like if you're like, oh, like it's Mario, then it's like, all right, well at least check it out though. Like it's a cool looking game.
Yeah.
Whereas Breath of the Wild, I don't even know if checking it out, like watching a Let's Play, would get a whole lot out of it. Like,
Yeah, see that one's totally different because I mean, whereas Mario, people have different experiences. It's still to a degree linear, but that game is
Right.
like straight up like
right,
there is
Like-
nothing that is everyone can have a 100% different experience. Like
right. Like if you were to look into Breath of the Wild for some reason, like, let's say you really didn't want to play it, like I didn't want to play it. Then there's pretty much the 4 dungeons and Ganondorf, and then you watch all the memories in order, and that's everything there is to get out of that game, right? If you're not going to play it.
Yeah, the rest is like completely based off of your interactions with the environment, and I think that's what
And that-
makes it special because I feel that so spoiler alert, I guess the bosses in Breath of the Wild are like 4 versions of the same boss,
Yeah.
followed by Ganon being like the 5th version of those bosses.
Have you ever checked out what happens if you don't fight any of the towers, by the way, whatever, the dungeons?
No, I haven't. What's the alternate?
So if you go straight to Ganondorf, like if you watch a speedrun, you have to fight all 4 of the blights in a row before you fight Ganon, and then he doesn't lose any health.
Oh, great.
Yeah, so it's a crazy boss fight if you don't do any of the dungeons.
Oh man, yeah, that's a topic for a different day of how I feel about
Right,
speedrunning.
yeah.
But yeah, that's really interesting.
Probably, yeah.
I mean, because that in itself is a different experience, right?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So that game is all about your experience with it. So that one would be rough to argue. Well, although, so that's the thing, is like you could say you know whether or not you'd like the game, though, maybe from a Let's Play.
Yeah, it's like basically if it's watching a Let's Play is more like getting a sense of what to expect, like seeing the concept in action, I guess. Whereas, I mean, it's like seeing the concept versus experience the concept might be the same for some, and some it might be different. Like, I very rarely watch Let's Plays, like very, very rarely. It's mostly for like comedic reasons. And like it'll be small snippets. I haven't watched a full game in I think Injustice 1 was the last full game I watched, and it was like a month after it launched, just so I could see the story because I'm also kind of a DC comic guy.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Whereas it's kind of interesting. I have the contrast let's analyze video where part of the the main focus on it was talk about like good and bad in a game, but I was also kind of hoping to do like the most informative Let's Play you could watch, right? Where it's like that's the furthest you could get understanding contrast without grabbing the controller for yourself.
Yeah, I think that video was like really. Well, I mean, the whole series is pretty informative because I feel like like as you went, you were kind of describing like what's going. It's almost like that game kind of doesn't make much sense until after you've gotten to a certain point. It's like from the beginning, it's like what the heck are you, a shadow? Are you
right?
You would imagine like what are you, an imaginary friend?
Yeah,
so it's
that's
like,
the description on the back of the box is that you're an imaginary friend.
Yeah,
but,
so when it's almost like when it's a Let's Play that has someone talking, like explaining as you go, it's almost like someone is even helping you get a better understanding for that experience. So yeah,
that's Let's Plays, I guess.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts or anything like that?
I guess not. Maybe yeah, I think that's it, really.
Cool. All right. Well, that's us. Zoink out.
Zoink out.